seat taken?
Nobody's in the seat, then I ain't taking, friend.
So this is, Sabacc?
Sabacc.
Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Sabacc the Block, the official First Cut Star Wars show. We're here to break down the newest episode of the Acolyte, as well as to take a look back on Andor. Joining us to do all that, we have Sue in the house. What is up, Sue?
Hi. How are you
doing? I'm good. How are you?
Pretty well. Excited.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you on. Now, the first thing we do on this show for any guest, Sue, is to talk about what is your Star Wars story. So, Sue, what is your Star Wars story?
Yeah, so I got started pretty young. I think I was around like 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old. I can't really remember, but watched it with my dad. He's really into sci-fi. He introduced me to like a lot of things like Dune and even fantasy things like Lord of the Rings. So Star Wars was one of those things that I got into really early on, and I was probably a little too young to be watching hands getting cut off, but but I remember I was like so mesmerized by the droids in A New Hope. As soon as we see like C-3PO and R2, and when they get down onto Tatooine, I like turned to my dad and I was like, hey, can we go there where they're at? little child who's, impressionable, thinking that what I'm watching on TV is actually, attainable. But yeah, I was mesmerized by the droids, and, the rest was history.
So was it the original trilogy?
It was the original trilogy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And then from there, you went on to watch the other ones? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I watched the original trilogy with my dad, and then the other ones, the prequel trilogy. I was pretty young still when they were coming out, but I would watch them as well. And after that, I didn't really know that there was like more Star Wars content. I didn't know about all the shows. I wasn't really involved in the fandom or anything like that until a couple years ago. I remember watching. I mean, I knew there was a fandom, but I wasn't. Online spaces were quite difficult to get into, and also just like overwhelming. And then it was Mandalorian season 2 finale when Luke shows up, and I was like, oh, I wish I could like experience this with people, like other fans who are in love with Star Wars. And so that's what made me start looking online through social media and see like find other Star Wars readers, and started posting my own stuff, and then just ended up continuing with that.
That's really cool. I swear, hearing a good story about the online fandom now is like a rare thing, but also like really needed and appreciated. So that's an amazing thing to hear, Sue. So that's awesome. Let's move on to our green Psylop for today. Have that RB3. All right, so our green Psylop is all about a look back on Andor. So Andor season 2 is currently in production, and I know us two really appreciate this show. So I wanted to talk about what is it about this show that makes it so. There it is.
Psylop.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So what is it about this show that makes it so special to so many people and so relevant now more than ever, Sue?
Yeah, I think this show just has a lot of layers, and they actually had enough room to build up those layers and all of the different characters. They had 12 episodes that were quite long, and it was really nice getting to spend time with all of the characters and getting to see all the different things that they go through. I mean, we're following Cassian Andor for the most part, but there's also a lot of other people involved. A lot of people in different positions. Like we get to see the people on Ferrix, we get to see Aldani, we get to see the Empire and how they're oppressing on many different levels, and we get to see stories from other characters like on the Aldani arc and things like that. And a lot of it is relevant to today's political climate. A lot of not just today's, for a long time, there's a lot of parallels there. But now more than ever, there's just so many parallels, and I have like a whole thread on specifically parallels with Palestinian resistance, or just Palestine in general, and parallels that way. And again, with what's happening right now, specifically with Palestine and a lot of other countries, there's so many awful things happening around the world. It's interesting to see some of those parallels. And even if it's, in a small way, like we get to see an oppressive prison system, we get to see resources being taken and religion, being completely disregarded, and the people who practice that religion being completely disregarded by the empire just so they can take, resources from that planet. And it's not even like really important resources. They're just using it as a hub, as a base, essentially for for their bank. And we see Ferrix as well, that they were kind of in this situation where, yes, there was a bit of a presence from the empire, but not really. And as soon as like one thing goes wrong, it just comes crashing down. And we get to see, there was a beautiful scene in the finale where the character Wilman Pak, who's actually played by a Tunisian actor, the first Tunisian actor that I know of in Star Wars, despite how heavily Tunisia is featured specifically, as Tatooine. But yeah, so there's a scene where he his father, is killed, and there's this show of resistance, and he leads that resistance, and it was beautiful to see. So lots of different parallels, lots of comparisons to real world, and lots of things that we can use to I guess just have a conversation about real world events within a Star Wars show, which is beautiful.
It is beautiful, and I really do feel like Star Wars has always been about a resistance and a rebellion to an imperial colonial rule of people in power who are only concerned about their own interest and financial interest while stepping on everyone else. And I feel like that's what was always the intention of what George Lucas created back in the original series.
Yes.
So seeing a show just dedicate itself to that and dedicate itself to taking down these corrupt systems of power that have been in place for so long and that go hand in hand with each other, right? With imperialism, colonialism, capitalism, all working together to truly squeeze the life out of every living being in the galaxy and to make it as difficult as possible to succeed in life and to move on. And I feel like that's what's so powerful about Andor, is the fact that it has that incredible story arc of this one character kind of becoming emboldened to the world around him and becoming emboldened to seeing the death and the tragedies and the no escape of what the empire is. One of the best parts of this is the scene when he goes to Space Miami, Miami Beach, South Beach.
Yes.
I forget the name of it. Niamos? It might have been Niamos.
Niamos, yeah.
But he's like, I'm out. I got my money. I got my girl. I'm good. And then he just gets stopped by a cop who's just like, you look suspicious. And just
he does nothing.
Gets locked up.
Yeah.
And he literally did nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And ain't that the truth, right? Like you're just going, and after such a hard life as well, like his home planet being destroyed and then Ferrix being invaded essentially by the Empire, and him like trying to make a place for himself in the world and trying to just get by. Like he's just trying to do whatever he can. He gets involved with Aldhani, puts that behind him, and then now he's just, like you said, he's just trying to get by, live a quiet life, and he can't even do that. Right? And like in the most inconspicuous way, and you see like the huge show of force, and then even I believe somebody translated like the card that said like what his sentence was, and it was just like completely different than what he was like being charged with, like just the negligence, and the Empire really doesn't care, right? To them, having people in prisons and in his case building the Death Star is is all they really care about. And then he ends up joining the resistance, as we see, and it's interesting that because his story is it's not unique, right? Like there's a lot of people in real life who go through all of these hardships, and yeah, he's just trying to get by. He's just trying to do his own thing, but it's just like one thing after another, and it's like at the end of the day, you have no choice but to resist.
Yeah, there is no escape, and then there is no looking out for yourself when other people are in the same position you are. And I feel like that's another thing about Andor that's so effective, is this power in community and power in a belief in people, and trying to believe in people again, and believing that they can come together and we can come together with a common goal and a common cause to stand up against this imperial capitalistic superpower that is hell-bent on making sure we stay in our place. And I feel like that, whether it's Ferrix, Marva's speech with being a daughter of Ferrix is a beautiful example of that. But even in the prison community where he realizes like
Yes.
all of us have to escape. It's not just our
Yeah.
little cell and our little group escaping, but all of us finding one way out. So it's beautiful in that way as well.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have made it out if they hadn't all worked together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Arbor3. Sorry.
Oh no, my fault. I was just gonna say, like Andor, I definitely that's the one Star Wars show I watched twice over. Like I enjoyed it that much. And upon my second watch, I loved how I don't know if it was intentional, but the story definitely mirrored a lot of the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. In terms of the story of a reluctant political figure who was really starting out as a criminal and really on the other side of the law, but then becomes radicalized by the prison industrial complex. And I just thought I think there's a lot of actually analogies that they put in through Andor when you're talking about leaders, or you're talking about governments and systems. But I just love that this is the one, I love all this, we're going to talk about the ACOLYTE and all the Force stuff and everything too. But really getting into how the political structure of the Empire and is set up and just how it leads to that. And I actually, because all the other heroes that we see in Star Wars are really in the rebellion, really kind of like for funsies. You know what I mean? Like Luke Skywalker is like, I just kind of want to leave my planet. Same thing with, all the other characters. But this one is like, oh no, he joined the rebellion because he saw some stuff and it really took him to that level. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I really do like how it talks about these systems of control and power that all fuse together, that are all working in unison in one, right? Where imperialism, colonialism, and capitalism are all cut from the same cord and are all working together to make sure those people, those higher ups, stay in power, and to make sure that everyone else doesn't. And I just love how Cassian is able to see the system and to really work through it. And what's beautiful about art, Sue, is the fact that we can take from it and be inspired and be motivated and take these themes and apply it to our real world and see it. So what is it about that, the application, the inspiration of it all, that is just still so effective about art and about Andor specifically?
Yeah, I think it gives us a language to speak about these things, because sometimes it's hard to actually speak about like the actual events happening. Not that necessarily it's hard, but it's hard to like have conversations with people who are not familiar with it. But then if you say like, hey, like, this arc in Andor, well, that's, similar to what's happening, in this real world place right now. And then they can be like, oh, okay, yeah, now you kind of get it, right? Because there's, obviously a lot of, especially with Palestine, that's the one that obviously I've been thinking a lot more about over the last while, but there's a lot of, preconceived notions and misconceptions that are prevalent in the Western world about Palestine, about the history of it, about the resistance, all of that. And then it's hard to be like, okay, well, this is why they're doing this. And it's been, this long and all of that. And all you're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. But then when you do relate it to something like Andor and be like, well, you see how this happened here. Well, that's, it gives us a language to be able to talk about these things with people who are not as familiar with it, or who do have their own biases. And we all do, right? Which is, just normal part of being human. And I think it's also interesting to see, how media does reflect on and commentate on, or, create commentary on things that actually happen in the real world. And it's not just, these awful things happened, they're just in history books. Well, no, they actually influence a lot of the, media that we consume, that, maybe we are looking for something that's a little bit more of an escape from day to day, but then there's still kind of like, that thread of like, oh yeah, this is still relevant. It's not just completely, removed from real life events. And it's interesting to see that commentary and to see that the comparisons being made. And also like each person who creates, a story, like George Lucas with his prequel, with the first two sets of trilogies, and then Andor with the creators and the writers there, like each person has something to say about things that are happening in the world. And it's interesting to see individual artists' perspective and creatives' perspectives on things that are happening in the real world. And to kind of gain maybe even like a slightly different perspective, or just to gain like more, just to get like more of a different perspective on things that do happen in the real world and that do make you think, right? And I think that's kind of like the beauty of taking inspiration from the real world without trying to mimic it, one to one. And then still actually having something to say in a story, because Star Wars has always been political, and like, yes, it is, it's a fantasy show about laser swords and essentially magic, but there is still a lot to be learned from a story like that. It's not completely removed from reality.
And that's the beauty of Star Wars, right? Is the fact that other people can put their own signature, their own inspiration on it, being inspired by Star Wars itself, and then creating Star Wars like a Tony Gilroy. But just like any creator making Star Wars nowadays, is the fact that you can take inspiration from what you've seen before and then apply it to what you're currently doing now on a Star Wars project, which is really cool. Last thing I have is, do you have a favorite speech or line from the show?
Oof. Oh, that's a tough one. As the show was coming out, I kept like changing my mind, and I don't know if I have a favorite, unfortunately, because there's so many beautiful lines. There's so many beautiful like moments in each of the speeches. I think Luthen's probably hit the hardest a little bit just because of how personal it was for him. And just like the content of what he was saying, like he's given up everything for this cause, which you don't really see in the show. Like you kind of get like hints of that, but he's still kind of living on Coruscant. He's living kind of, you would assume, this like high life. He doesn't need to be involved in this rebellion, but he's the one who's like he's giving everything up for it. So I think probably my favorite line is from his speech. But no, they were all wonderful. It's hard to pick one.
What's the line? I'm curious.
Oh man, I'm not going to be able to quote it right now, but it's the one where he, oh man, what is it? I forget the line. I know it and I'm not forgetting.
No worries. Is it like I burn myself to see a sunrise I will never see, or to make a sunrise I will never see?
Yes, that
like
one.
That? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. He's working towards something that he's never actually going to be able to participate in, but he knows that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I think this is so beautiful.
There's so many. Marva's speech is incredible. Yes. Kino's speech is incredible. I feel like Nemec's manifesto, just the entire manifesto, is beautiful. I don't know if anyone has read that, but I highly recommend reading it. It's on Wikipedia.
Oh, they actually have the whole manifesto.
They do. They have the whole thing typed out. I have it pulled up right here in my notes, and it's amazing. It's such bars. Like every line is a bar. Just the first line: there will be times when the struggle seems impossible. Like that's already like, I'm just like, bruh. Yeah. That's incredible. But my favorite line is still Cassian. He says, I rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they want, which is what Kino quotes in his speech later on. And I really do feel like that's the perfect one for me.
Yes. No, that is a wonderful line. I love it.
All right, let's move on.
You're going to make me rewatch this show right after.
Yeah, for real.
It's been a while.
Let's move on to Full Sabacc for today.
Full Sabacc.
Our Full Sabacc is all about the Acolyte episode 4. We all saw the episode. We are here to break it down in a spoiler discussion. But the first question I have for you, Sue, is what did you think of the episode?
Yeah, the episode, I think, I just rewatched it a second time, and it still feels a little bit short. It is, I think, the shortest episode that we've gotten so far. There's a lot of great content in it, but I think we needed a little bit more time with the characters, a little bit more character work in there. However, there, again, lots of great content in there. The dynamic between May and Kymir was my favorite. Just like the little subtleties, the little hints. The actors in the entire show have been doing a phenomenal job, and this episode's no exception. Basil, I would die for him. And his little bickering with Pip, that was so Star Wars. I loved it. I ate that up. I love it. Yord and Jackie bickering and continuing to bicker, and then Osha is now sort of in on it a little bit too. She kind of pokes fun at him a little, at Yord, which is always funny to see. I wish we got more of Kalnaka. I was hoping, where we left off with episode 2, and then now that we were going to get back onto Kofar, that we would actually get to see more of him, get to see him in action. they're killing them off too quickly. But I get it. I understand why. And the ending of this episode was unsettling in like the best way. I think the thing about this episode and just the show so far is every time I like watch a new episode or watch a new scene, my mind's just like buzzing with like theories and ideas and trying to make connections with like previous things that have happened, and then getting to discuss it with people afterwards. That's been my favorite thing. But yeah, overall, not my favorite episode, but I think it had some really great moments.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's definitely not my favorite. It's probably my least favorite of the four so far, but it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I got a lot out of it personally, because I feel like the story is moving forward a lot quicker in this episode, which I appreciate, because we only have, I think, only 8 episodes in this season, right?
Yes. We're halfway through. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that was needed. We needed that. And we also needed a lot more of Chimere, and a lot more hints about Chimere and what he's planning and what he's doing. And their dynamic was great. I agree with that. I feel like May and Chimere worked really well. But the question that everyone has, let's just jump to it. Who is Darth Teeth?
Oh man, every time I think I've got an idea, it just like it throws me for like the show throws me for a loop again. First 2 episodes, I was convinced that it was Mother Anastasia or somebody from the Witches. And then as I was like going back and rewatching, I was like, well, maybe it's actually Chimere. There's like enough in there in the first 2 episodes to kind of, make it seem like it's him. And then this episode, I'm wondering if it's a red herring now. Like it's a little too obvious that it's Chimere. He's playing the fool a little too well, and May starts catching on. But he like, there's definitely more to him than we see. And like initially when I first watched the first 2 episodes, my thought was he was somebody with like a really hard life and just happened to be in like a series of unfortunate situations, like, working under the huts and then now being like indebted to this master. But right now I'm not sure that he's Darth Teeth. And I'm not sure if that's who the master is still. I'm not sure. I keep going back to the fact that it has to be somebody who has some sort of like relationship with the witches, because why would they be so adamant about letting May go off, and when she's unprepared to go kill these Jedi and expose them and risk that, if there isn't some sort of like motivation behind that? Like it's not just here's like an apprentice of mine that I'm training and like just go off and kill Jedi. There's like a purpose behind the Jedi that she's killing, and like the master knows that and would only allow it if there was some sort of motivation. So I'm still leaning towards the fact that it's somebody from the Witches or is related to the Witches in some way. But they keep throwing me for a loop every time I feel like I've got a handle on it.
So it's funny because
who do you think?
I feel like everyone, like after episode 1 or episode 1 and 2, we're ready to like nail Chimere and be like, this is him. He's the one.
You quoted this in, but yeah.
Yeah. And after this episode, I'm like, it's totally him. Like there's no denying it. Because the way May was questioning, how'd you get through that forest? That forest, like no one can get through that unless you're like elite or like a fighter and dope. And he got through that forest. He scattered everyone out. And his insistence was also something that May caught on to, where she was like, this is a little weird. Like, how does he know more about the master than I do? And I'm the one who's like training in the force. So I feel like all those hints are there to tell you that he's definitely the one. I think the twist, though, is that he's not a master, that he's the apprentice. And he has an older master who's much, much older and might be connected to the witches, who was there 16 years ago and lines up a little bit more age-wise. And he's just the apprentice kind of doing his own thing, collecting acolytes. And he's trying to see which acolyte is the most powerful or something. I feel like that's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I definitely think like, so him and May seem to have spent time together, and she has an idea of who he is. And she does know that he knows how to fight. Like she knows he's got skills, and the skills I think could be force sensitive. I think there is something there. And you're right, like with his insistence on, getting to Kilnaka, I think there's something about this planet that he knows that nobody else understands just yet. And so that's why he wants to get to Kilnaka before nightfall, because he's like adamant about it being before nightfall. and he knows his way through the forest. And I'm wondering whether he's like spent time there, or he's, it's not just like, oh, I was here once before. I found Kalnaka, who happened to not kill me.
Yeah.
and now I'm here to take you again. Like, there's no way. The story doesn't make sense to me. And there's also the fact that like we have the witches symbols in Kalnaka's, like, it looks like a ship or something. And so my mind's like, okay, well, is this where the witches used to be before they were exiled and they went to Brendok? Or is this like when they were exiled, some of them ended up on Kofar? So Chimere somehow knows this, or he spent time there, or he's like, he's grown up there or something. Like he definitely knows more about this planet than he's letting on, because he's also like not afraid when he says, he knows bounty hunters that wouldn't even like go into the forest, and the locals aren't going into the forest. So like, he's way too comfortable in that forest to just be, there as like a scout, or there as just, just to lead May into that. He definitely knows a lot more. He could be, I agree with you. I think Darth Teeth is not the master. There is something else at work here that he knows some of, but he doesn't know all of. And so that's why he's been like pestering May with questions that entire walk in the forest. And she catches on. But yeah, I think there's something else going on there.
Yeah, let me talk about that. What is it about May's switch up? So a lot of people are not liking that it was too quick or too abrupt. What you think of it?
Yeah. I think it makes sense. The execution, I think, could have been done a little bit better, because they have been like hinting at it so far. Like my first thought with May when she was like going to fight Indara, and even when she went to Torben, like she's not doing this out of like loyalty to her master, or that she like believes whatever she's being taught. She's doing it out of loyalty to her family, right? And she's trying to avenge their death, and so that's what her motivation is. And she just happened to have a master who's like teaching her the skills necessary for her to go off and do this thing. But she's not so much even like caring about fulfilling this test or passing this test so much as she wants the Jedi dead. Like this to her is just avenging her family. And so finding out that Osha's alive should be like this earth-shattering moment for her. And we don't get to see that, right? Like we get to see her shock when she sees Osha, but then we don't get to see the fallout of that. And I feel like with this episode, with it being so short, they could have added a scene in the beginning where she's on her own on the ship or something, and she's like, her mind's sort of all over the place, being like, well, was I lied to? How's she alive? All of that sort of stuff. Like, I think that would have helped, with her flipping sides. I think that would have helped, people make sense of that. But I think it makes sense. And I was expecting that anyways, now that she knows that Osha is alive. I think just the execution was a little bit janky, but it does make sense to me.
Yeah, I personally felt like it made sense. I felt like it flowed within the episode, especially with Chimere. I feel like Chimere was there to really make her question her master. She's really wondering why her master would send this guy, which is, I think, her thought process, to make sure she completes her mission. And why is he so insistent that she does it right away before she can even see Osha again and try to talk things out? Like he's making sure she gets to Kelnaka before Osha gets to her. And I feel like that in her head was already just like red flag after red flag, making her question her master. And then I feel like realizing that if Osha is still alive, that really changes a lot for her, because like you said, that was her main motivation. It was revenge because of her sister. And I feel like that really comes with a lot of Chimere and a lot of questioning what Chimere's purpose is in this whole scenario. Like I said before, I feel like she feels like he knows more than she does, which is what really makes her question her whole mission in the first place. So I felt like it made sense personally. I felt like the whole switch up was set up there from the beginning. What'd you think of Master Soul?
Oh, Master Soul keeps being more and more interesting. He definitely knows a lot more than he's letting on, obviously. I don't think he's going to make it back onto that ship, because he's holding this information. And now that he said, oh, I'll get to it once we get back to the ship. I think, unfortunately, that's a sign that he's not going to make it onto the ship. And whatever knowledge is going to, essentially die with him, or maybe whatever happens. But he definitely knows a lot more. It's interesting seeing all the different Jedi that were involved with the Brendock incident and how they each dealt with it. And for him, he dove right into teaching and specifically taking Osha on as a Padawan. And it feels like, well, yes, he is definitely a very kind soul and he is definitely very gentle and caring. I think part of the reason that he takes her on as his Padawan is out of guilt for what happened and his role in it. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily directly involved. I think he does play a part, or at least he knows more than he's letting on. And he now feels like, okay, I need to fess up. I need to tell the girls what happened, because there has been lies said to both of them. And now that he knows that May is alive for sure, there has to be some sort of like reconciliation or something. And the only way that that can happen is through him fessing up. Definitely think that like he's got like good intentions. It's just he's wrapped up in a lot of other stuff that's happening, and he's trying to make the best of it, for better or for worse. But there's a lot more, I think, in his involvement in, and I think there's still more that he's holding back from just everybody, like including like Vernestra and whatever story he wants to tell. It's going to be exclusive to like the girls, and I hope he gets a chance to tell it, because I think it's going to like, explain a lot of what's happening, because he's also like not surprised by a lot of things that are happening. A lot of like, he's just sort of like going with the flow, and none of it is really shaking him. But yeah, I think he knows a lot more than he's letting on, and I think he's out of a he's trying to do the right thing by withholding this information. I think he feels like not saying that information is like, is the best course of action. He's tried to fix things his own way, but now he's sort of got to fess up. And he's the only one left to fess up.
Exactly. He's the only one. He's the only survivor who can tell the truth of what happened.
Yep.
But
or at least his side, the Jedi side of what happened. Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the way, because I rewatched the episode too, the way he defended May at every turn, I feel like is very purposeful. Like you could see Venestra, or like he says it, Venestra, which I was like, yes, give me that. But the way he was talking to her and being like, no, she's an innocent girl. She was left alone on a planet. She's still alive, so this changes everything. She's not at fault in this situation. It's her master manipulating her and putting her in this situation. Like the way he's like really going to bat for her makes me question a lot of what we saw last episode as far as what happened. So let's just get to predictions. I kind of want to start it off, because I'm sitting on this hot prediction that I've been waiting for a while. And I feel like this episode confirmed it for me, where I think Osha is going to go to the dark side. And I think they're setting that up the way you could see her get more and more angry. And I think Osha started the fire. I think that whole thing was her projecting and her kind of justifying the situation. And I think May is the one who's trying to stop her and being like, what are you doing? And that's why Soul is like, I have something to tell you too on the ship. And he wants to try and bridge those fences, because May is actually the dark child who was already showing signs of being a dark side force user on Brendock, and he saw that and he wanted to keep that from her, and that's why he took her in as her Padawan. So that's like my smoking hot take.
Interesting.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. So, okay, I definitely think he knows more about the girls than we're led to believe so far. I think all of the Jedi that were on Brendock, I don't think they were there, like they were stationed there, but I think they were there like with a purpose. Like they knew that there was something happening on this planet. They knew there was something they needed to get involved in. They knew there was like force users that were using the force in a different way. And their purpose was to like take the girls from them. And I think that they knew more about what was going on with these girls, why they're special, than even like the questions that they're asking. It's like they already knew that they needed to ask these questions. It's not like this isn't new, like this isn't them just coming into a situation, with fresh eyes. They already have a lot of information about these girls, about this coven, all of what's happening on Brendock. And they're coming in and they're like asking very pointed questions to try to get, confirmation of things. So I think he knows a lot more about what is happening with these girls, about their force connection, whatever it may be. And I think this episode was really interesting in something that I had thought about before was Osha doesn't have a very strong connection in the force, not like May. And it kind of gets confirmed in this episode where she's like, oh, I can like sense them through the force now. It's almost like she didn't have that for a long time. And I think that's probably why she left the Jedi's. She couldn't quite hack it, essentially, because she didn't have that strong connection to the force. I'm losing my train of thought. But I think there is something like interesting happening with the two girls, and I do think that they are setting up, the two of them flipping, and we do see signs of that. Like we see May being kind in the very first episode, not killing the shopkeeper. Like the only reason she like throws a dagger at the shopkeeper, she uses it as a distraction. She knows it's not going to kill him, and that Andor is gonna stop it. And she, even when she's like threatening him, she's not really doing it in a way where she has like, she is where there's like meaning behind it. She's just sort of like threatening as like a way to shut him up. Like there is definitely like good in her. And I think with Osha, it's her anger and her wanting revenge that's going to like end up flipping. And she's still like, we see her talk to Yord being like, if like I'm not going to be able to do it, but like you have to take her out. if things go sideways, you have to take her out. And so like, yeah, I definitely think they're setting up that flip flop, and it's going to be interesting to see when they do flip where they're going to end up, because I don't think they're going to end up in the same place just yet. I think they're saving that for towards the end, and it's going to explain, I think, a lot more about what happened back in Brundock as well. Okay, with the fire, I don't think that it was either girl's fault, whatever happened on Brundock, because there's no way a fire in like a stone fortress, blew the whole thing up. We already saw that the reactor was having issues, and then there's like this big, huge, like, what was it, like a shake that happens as Osha is escaping, and then lots of screaming, and then we actually see the reactor like blow up. Like there's something else going on, and I actually have a feeling that the Jedi maybe inadvertently did something, and it like caused a chain reaction that was unfortunately, destructive. And it's interesting that they didn't show us the Jedi side just yet, because I think that it's gonna explain a lot of like, why are they there? What's their interest in the girls? What's their interest in the Coven? What do they know? And then like, what was their actual purpose there? Because I don't think their purpose there was just like, chilling on this planet that they said is uninhabited, right? Like there's something there, and that planet itself as well has some sort of connection to the Force, because we see like the celestial phenomena when the moons line up, and it like that's when they do the ascension, because I think it like essentially gives them a better connection into the Force, and they can do more within the Force during that time. And I think similar things are happening with Kofar and the Forest specifically, almost kind of like Dagobah, where, Luke sees that vision. There's some sort of connection with the Force there. And again, we see like the artifacts of there being like this remnants of the witches. And we see something that looks like a ship, which looks a little bit like what we saw in the background of the first scene with the Bunta tree on Brundock. So I think there's some sort of connection there. There's a reason that Kalnaka like has cut ties for like a year. There's something else going on in the background with all of this, but I think we're going to see that yes, the girls are going to flip flop. The Jedi are unintentionally more culpable in what happened on Brundock, which is why there's like so much guilt with all of them. And like Torben literally just like doesn't even think, he just takes the poison and goes. And they know a lot more than they're letting on. So yeah, it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I feel like the planet thing you said is really key, because there's that one like 5-second scene that they show where there are two witches standing over that well or that cave, and it feels like there's something, like there's a Force entity or just like a Force connection that's even deeper in there, that little cave that they had when they were doing the ascension. So I feel like that's also important. But yeah, I just feel like they're leading Osha to show that Osha has always had dark side tendencies. I don't think, even if she did start the fire, obviously that's not what killed everyone. I just feel like that is to show herself, that this is how she justifies it, where she sees that May, she blames May for everything that happened in her life, when in reality, maybe it was her. And I think that's why I'm leaning that way. And also, when Yord said he brought you here to face yourself, and the way he said, if Master Soul sees something good in her, then there is, like, Yord of all people saying that, I was like,
right?
I think there's something about May that we don't know. And I feel like that's what we don't know, is that maybe she was showing a little bit more of a light side to her versus Osha's dark side. So we'll see, I guess.
And it's actually, and it's interesting that you bring that up as well, because when we see them under the Bunta tree, and they're both using the Force on that little like magical firefly butterfly thing, the music turns dark for both of them. It turns a little bit darker for May, but it also turns dark for Osha. Like I don't think this is like a light side dark side dichotomy thing. I think this is like both of them have the capacity for both. And like Osha definitely has the capacity and the ability to go to the dark side, and it'll be interesting to see why and when she does, like what kind of like triggers that. I think there is a little bit of insecurity there too, like because she does. There's a moment in this episode where Soul asks her to go with him. She's like, "Oh, as like a Jedi, like am I being like taken back by the Jedi essentially?" And there's like a moment of hope, and he's like, "Oh, no, not really." So I think like she's still trying to figure out a place to like belong, and I think that might be like something that like tips her one way or another. But yeah, I think she's gonna go to the dark side, and it's interesting that maybe she did start the fire, and she kind of maybe justified it differently, because at one point as well, like when they're both on the bridge, they're both blaming each other. Like she's like, "What did you do?" And she's like, "What did you do?" Right? Like, exactly. You're right. No, actually, no, that's good catch there. Yeah. Interesting.
I also caught that creature one. That creature scene was so key to me, because she does the same thing May does in holding the creature, but then she gets mad at May when she does it. And I was like, you just did the same thing, girl.
Exactly. Like, you're right.
I feel like that's kind of her being like, it's May's fault. She's the dark one. She's the creepy one. She's the evil one. Yeah. And in her mind, she's the good one, when in reality, she also has those tendencies, those dark side tendencies. But again, this is all like, I don't think this is what killed anyone, but I do feel like it's there to show you that she is the fire. She is the dark side one. And then May will be the light. Any final predictions do you have?
Oh boy. Let me see. I did write a couple of things down. Oh no, I already talked about this one with the witches that were on Kofar before, and like either it was ones that's where they were exiled from, or when they were exiled, there's some sort of like splintering, and some of them ended up on Brendok, and some of them ended up on Kofar. But yeah, there's something going on with that place that Kalnaka is in, and I wonder if even like this Darth T person's like, or even Kymir's like, we're has got some sort of connection with this forest. But yeah, I don't have any other connection or predictions. I think we talked about the big ones there.
Let me go to the chat.
Well, I guess maybe one would be. Oh yeah, go for it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I don't think any of the Jedi involved are probably gonna make it out alive. Maybe like Yord and Jackie, but definitely not Soul. I mean, out of the 4 Jedi that were involved on Brendok, 3 of them are gone. I don't think Soul is gonna, unfortunately, make it past the end of the season. As much as I love him and adore him.
I definitely agree.
And I actually think one of the twins. Yeah, I was actually gonna say I think one of the twins is also gonna end up not making it by the end of the season. And whatever their like the special thing between the two of them is, whatever connection they have in the Force, I think there's gonna be some big like there's gonna be something that happens with that when one of them dies.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that one for sure. Shout out to Gary. She's in the chat right now. Star Wars Studios in there. And so is Scarab Scuttlebutt Podcast, and so is Dalton. So shout out to them. RB3, go ahead.
Shout out to the chat. Shout out to King Kendrick Lamar. He's live right now on the Juneteenth concert, so it's going crazy. I'm bumping that in the background. And and if you're in the chat, watch. Go ahead and hit that like button for us, and then subscribe if you're not subscribed already.
There you go. Last thing I have about this whole situation, my final super hot take is that what if Osha becomes the acolyte? What if she kills Master Soul when she tells her the truth? Like, she'll be like, this is what actually happened on Brendok. Whatever it was, like, let's say it was the Jedi just killing everyone or whatever it is. I feel like she gets angry and she just breaks out in anger and uses, like, I don't know, a force snap neck. I don't know. She kills Soul without a weapon. And then the acolyte, Dark Teeth, is like, you're my girl. You just did the thing that I wanted May to do. Come join my dark side. And I feel like that's like the little twist ending.
Yeah. There's a reason he doesn't kill her. Like he's faced with this one of the group of, like, somebody with the Jedi. Why doesn't he kill her immediately? Right? There's a reason he doesn't. He, like, comes up to her and pauses a little bit. There's something that he senses in her. And I think that she does have this capacity for the dark side. And that's maybe what will actually, like, get her using the force in bigger ways. And yeah, I think, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't considered her killing Soul. I was thinking Soul would actually, like, end up sacrificing himself trying to save May from either Osha or you know, the Master or Darth Teeth or whatever. But I thought that he would end up sacrificing himself for one of the girls, specifically May. But that would be a really interesting twist.
It'd be so dark.
I love that. Yes, it would be. I love that.
But that's where my mind went. It just went to the darkest places.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Squad Up with Squad Leader Ace for today. So for Squad Up, we pick any Star Wars character for a specific scenario. The scenario that I have for today is you are a rebel on a rescue mission breaking out a target out of a high security Imperial prison. Your target is of great importance to the rebellion, so success is critical. In order to succeed, you will need these things. Number 1, a reliable pilot. This pilot will get you in and out as efficiently as possible. Number 2, an explosives expert. In order to get through these blast doors, you're going to need someone who knows their way around explosives. Number 3, a droid. This will be a trustworthy droid that will always have your back. Number 4, a Jedi, because every mission needs a good Jedi. And number 5, a weapons expert, someone who is accustomed to battle and knows their way around weapons. Sue, the first thing I gotta ask is, who's gonna be your pilot on this mission?
I had to think about this one because my first instinct was to say Han and or Chewie, but then I think I'm gonna have to go with Poe. He did a great job in the sequels, but he's also, like, he pushes a lot more and he's not as selfish as Han is. So I feel like he would actually, like, look out for us a little bit more than Han would. Han would be like, okay, this is going sideways, I gotta tail it. But Poe, I think, would do a better job, and he's also a great pilot. So
incredible pilot. I love Poe, and I think that's a great choice.
Yes.
My choice is my girl, my pilot, the one I always go to, Harrison Dula. I feel like if there's anyone who knows their way around a mission, it's going to be Hera, and I feel like she would just kill it. She knows what she's doing. She's the best pilot in the galaxy, in my opinion, but I feel like Hera would kill it.
Yeah.
Who is your, all right, what's the next one? Who is your explosive expert?
So I don't actually know very many. Wrecker came to mind. I've been starting the Bad Batch. I haven't gotten through the whole thing, but yeah, he's the first one that came to mind. So I'm going with Wrecker.
Wrecker is always, like, the one I have in the back of my head because I feel like that's his like thing. That's the thing he always talks about. He's like, that's explosion. That's my thing. Yeah. But I gotta go with, like, the number one pick. It's Sabine Wren. Sabine Wren to me.
I haven't watched Rebels yet, but no.
I feel like she's the one who, like, loves explosions. That's part of her art. Okay. And she knows how to do it, like, super efficiently. So for me, my choice is Sabine.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice. So who is your droid?
Okay. R2 has a special place in my heart. Again, I mentioned I was, like, super young when I watched the movie, and, like, yes, there's a lot of other great droids, but R2 just has my heart, and he is a droid that will have your back. He's trustworthy. He will, like, he's got the sass as well. He's maybe not, like, the most versatile droid. He doesn't necessarily have, like, as much, tools and all of that as maybe some of the other ones, but he will like put his all in. He will figure it out. He will get you out of that spot. I gotta go with R2.
R2's a great one. I feel like no one can top R2's, like the way he knows like his in and outs of systems and stuff like that.
Yes.
Like R2's been through it all. He's seen everything,
Yep.
every generation, because he's so old. Yep. And he's basically the narrator in Star Wars. He's the one telling the story.
I heard that too. Yep.
And so he's dope, but I feel like my pick is like just all hands. Like he will just like scrap. And I feel like that's what I need in this mission. Like in case anything goes wrong, I have a backup, and he's just a beast. Chopper is my choice.
Yeah, that would have been my other choice.
Yeah, I'm picking Chopper because he will literally bring out his little robotic arms and start swinging those things around.
Yeah.
If anything goes crazy in that prison. So I feel like he's just the one droid army himself. So
yeah,
that would be my choice.
Absolutely.
Who is your Jedi for this mission?
Rey. I love her too much.
You picked mine.
Listen, she. Oh,
yeah.
No, I gotta go with Rey. She's awesome. She can she's got the skills. She's lived on her own long enough that she's got like all of these other skills as well. That even if she's not using the Force, even if she's not using the lightsaber, she can get herself out of situations, and she can figure out ways, to get things done on her own. She's had to do it for so long. And then on top of that, she's a great Jedi, and trained with Leia, which and Luke. So like she's got she's got the training. She's also got like the dyad as well, that she's also been able to like absorb a lot of that knowledge and skills from as well. So yeah, it's got to be Rey, and I can't wait for her movie.
Oh, I can't wait. I love Rey. Rey's like one of my all-time favorite characters. She's like the background on my phone right now. No joke.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, who's going to stand against her? Like, she could literally just pull the cell out of the prison just using the Force if she needs to.
Exactly.
But since you picked Rey, I have to pick someone else, and I'll pick my.
Oh, really? Oh.
I'll pick the one that I feel like he's the most accustomed to going on these type of missions, and that is the Rebel Jedi, the Latino Jedi. Kanan Jarrus is my choice. I feel like he would just go in and just wreck shop, and he's got the experience to do it. So Kanan is my choice for this rescue mission.
Awesome. You've got like the whole Rebel crew.
I know.
So far.
I'm so biased. It's ridiculous.
Love it. Hey, when you they're great.
Chemistry.
You gotta admit. Yep.
I mean, the team works. They know each other. They know their vibes. I mean,
that's true.
Why break it up, right?
True. Exactly.
Last one I have is your weapons expert, Sue.
Yeah. Oh, this has to be a Mandalorian, right? Like nobody better in the galaxy. I'm going with Bo-Katan. She's she's too badass. She's too badass, and she can do everything too. Like she can fight, she can fly. She's great with the blaster. She's great with the dark saber. She can pilot. Season 3, she can do it all.
Yeah, that's a great
and she
choice.
also sits pretty on a throne. So she's gonna like come in and look great as she's just doing everything.
Wrecking shop. Yeah, I mean, you need someone who's like not just bringing the guns, but the vibes, right? You need someone who's like bringing the looks, the vibes, the presence. You got to go in, blasting music on your way, breaking into the prison. So Bo-Katan's a great choice. I love that. My choice is someone who also is used to missions and battles and all this kind of stuff. And again, he knows his way around weapons. I'm going with Rex. Rex is my choice. Again, I feel like him and his double blasters, him and Sabine just teaming up together, I feel like that would just be the dynamic duo that would tear the Empire in half. So
great choice. Yeah. Nice. Love it.
All right, Sue. So last thing, I just want to run it back. Who are your 5? So let's start with your pilot.
Poe Dameron.
Your explosives expert.
Wrecker.
Your droid.
R2-D2.
Your Jedi.
Rey Skywalker.
And your weapons expert.
Bo-Katan.
Awesome. And for me, my pilot is Hera. My explosive expert is Sabine. My droid is Chopper. My Jedi is Kanan. I'm realizing it's all the Rebels crew. And my weapons expert is Rex himself. Sue, thank you so much for joining this show.
Thank you.
Where can everyone find you?
Thank you so much. This has been a joy. So you guys can find me on TikTok and Twitter at Sue's Theories or Sus Theories, SUS Theories on both those platforms.
Awesome. And you can find me at Squad Leader Ace. You can follow us right here at First Cut, and make sure to follow us at First Cut TMO on social media. RB3, where can everyone find you, man?
Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3.
Alrighty, guys. For the Sabacc the Block crew, we're going to be peacing out. So peace, deuces.